We in there, brother. Let's get it. Good afternoon.
Yo, what's up, everybody?
And I'm gonna let you go ahead and because you were the mastermind of this. Let's tag team back again.
Well, yeah, so and it's gonna be important for people that's tuning in. You know what I'm saying? If you have any questions, feedback, let us know. Let us know. This is a powerful conversation because this is essentially how I met you. When I met you, um you were working at Job Corps. I remember I first got an email from you when you were working at Job Corps and doing some programming. And I think that was really my first time even being made aware of the program in greater detail. It was something you always kind of heard of, but didn't know that much about. And over the course of our time growing together as brothers and colleagues and things like that, I always noticed you had a very strong connection with the people who either still work there or your former students. So the impact you had in the classroom as a guest teacher wasn't just at those high schools you were at, but it was also, and probably with the foundational piece was probably at Job Corps. But I had this idea of having this conversation today because you were one of the first people I thought about when I came across the headline that it was essentially being phased out or ended at the end of May last
Yep.
week. And
Yep.
for me, my immediate concern is just like, yo, what's going to happen to all of our kids? I think you could probably provide better clarity because my role in this is I was at the public school in the area. You were formerly at an area where our kids would go if they did not fit in that traditional school setting, starting at the age of 16. I have some questions too of even trying to understand, like, could kids just opt to go there? Would they have to be recommended? There are a lot of things, but of course, my immediate concern was, yo, what happens to these 100 plus kids at that location, various other locations around the country? What about the folks who are there providing services? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Even with that, I always think it's important as a historian and former classroom teacher to make sure when we see this legislation in like this, like we've been seeing a lot lately, I think it's important for us to understand why it was even created, and then
Mm-hmm.
also take note of who were some of the power players that caused it or influenced it to pass. Because, like I was saying on Substack earlier, it's important to understand because we exist in similar situations now with different technology at our disposal, but also too, those same people who were advocates of it then are similar to us. They're no different than us in in our capacity to create change. So Job Corps was established in 1964 as a part of President LBJ's looking at my notes right here, so excuse me. LBJ's War on Poverty through the Economic Opportunity Act. All right,
Mm.
so that's from 1964. Whenever I see anything from the 60s that's positive legislation, my antenna goes up because I'm thinking, oh, that's when King and them was active,
Yeah.
and I say
Yeah.
King and them with an emphasis on the them because we know it wasn't an individualistic effort. There were so many people who advocated for this. So it was designated to offer low income young folks a pathway out of poverty through free job training, education, and housing. And it's
Yep.
important. Oh, 1965 is when it first got started, too. So we're talking 60 years, right? It's gone. Keep in mind, although Black and Latino kids were the main ones who benefited, this was for anybody low income. So we have our
Right.
white counterparts who also benefited from this too. And I'm gonna land my plane on this. Um, Two people who were very important and two organizations that were very important to the implementation. Because when the president signs something, it ain't just the president, it's all the people who force that person to do such a thing. It's the advocacy, the constant protest. So we have Whitney Young, who I was introduced to that name because that's a high school in Chicago that's well known for academics and sports. But he was
Mm-hmm.
the head of the National Urban League and a strong advocate for government investment in workforce training for our kids. We have Bayard Rustin, who was an advisor to King, taught him about civil disobedience and nonviolent protests, and who was also an advocate for this. We got the
Mm-hmm.
National Urban League, of course, and we have the NAACP. These programs still exist. So now, as we kind of look at this, we are in a similar situation. The problems that existed prior to that still exists now. So my question for you, brother, is first off, like, how did you get involved in Job Corps? And so how did you get involved? Um, what was your experience like? And what do we do moving forward from your perspective?
Man, these are all good questions, man. First and foremost, if my students don't know you, I want to introduce them to you. This is my brother, my right-hand man, Mr. Ernest Krim. He's known as your favorite Black history teacher. He was a teacher for various years, probably maybe about 10 years in a high school setting. And he did some other work in Chicago, born and raised in Chicago. So as y'all watch this, we should be able to relate to him because he's from geographically where we're from. For my students that's watching this, those who completed the program years ago, I want I want to make sure that I put a demand on you, just like when we was in the school, to make sure that you comment because we're gonna be identifying problems, but we're gonna be focusing more on solutions, implementation, and execution of those solutions itself. Also, for my students, whether you're in a private group or you watching this on our Facebook page, share this with everybody because the experience that we had with one another made us to be family. That experience that we had, it made us to be family. We have a Job Corps reunion group, and I know we want to talk about doing reunion stuff, barbecues, partying, whatever it may be. But right now, we need to reunion, connect to make sure that our people in our city that have been involved in this program and benefited from this program, if it's leaving, then us as a community, we got to stand up and be accountable and be leaders and make sure that they're taken care of. To your point, I got involved in the program. So let me say this. Let me shout out you again, Krim, because when I first got wind of Job Corps being canceled, I really didn't feel the impacts of it. I was like, you know, because my thought was, well, I'm not there any longer. And I'm really addressing like the mentality that we have when we operate in individualism. So excuse me, because I'm outside in this little umbrella just doing what it want to do. But I'm gonna stay focused just for this conversation because it's very intense and very important. My response was, and then I kept seeing it because it's one of the biggest stories that's taking place right now in the United States of America. Not only just in Illinois or Chicago, there is a total of about 100, 120 Job Corps. Back then, when we were there, it was about 121. We had one of the top ranking centers. Now we on the verge of seeing 99 of these centers getting ready to close. And I say that because it impacted me. And when I saw you and we was texting and doing what we do as far as communication, I said, yeah, I'm glad he stirred this up because we need to talk about this. Because I still got people that work there that I'm connected to. Got 3 employees that work there and they are part of our church family. So then that pushed me in a direction to say, yeah, we need to reunite, do this Substack. My apologies for that, but I still want to stretch it so we can do the Zoom. So make a long story short, how did I get involved in Job Corps? I lived in Job Corps, have lived in not Job Corps, but in Joliet my entire existence, 45 years. I had never heard of Job Corps. Never heard of Job Corps, Krim. I got involved in Job Corps from 2011 to 2016. I volunteered for 5 months. And the reason why I got there practically was because I had staff members there, rest in heaven to Mama Loretta Westbrook, but some of these kids remember. She drove on me and said, you need to help those kids. You need to come to Job Corps. I'm like, what is Job Corps? I had never heard of it. Maybe I heard about it in passing, but I never connected to it. So when she came at me, I drew back. And when I drew back, I saw God. And then I had a moment in my life that changed my whole landscape of my life. I had a visitation from God, and the first thing that he told me, Brother Quinn, was, I need to let you know that you're selfish. Then he said to me, the gift that I placed inside of you is for them. You love your nieces and nephews like your sons and daughters. There are other people, nieces and nephews, that need your help. I need you to go to Job Corps. Man, I cried on the floor for about 20 or 30 minutes. And when I got up from my tears, I called Mama Loretta at about 8:30 in the morning. I'm sorry, in the evening. I said, "Hey, Ma, how you doing? Good. How was your day?" It was okay, baby. How was yours? I'm ready. She said, "What?" I'm ready. Ready for what? I'm ready to go to Job Corps. She said, "Are you sure?" I'm positive. I'd never been more positive of a decision in my life because it wasn't me making the decision. It was me agreeing with the decision was made. And from that point, I volunteered for 5 months, got to the end of myself. I told God, man, I can't keep doing this, man, without pay. Right. So I was job shadowing a brother, Don McNeil, who was getting ready to transition to corporate. At that time, Adams and Associate was the contractor because all the job corps have independent contractors. So it's a management firm that manages the contract itself. He ended up going to corporate, and I transitioned into my position as a career preparation instructor. So I was an OA admissions person, career preparation instructor, staff development. I led the mentoring program for my CPP mentors out there. Shout out to you. Those people were built up to be leaders to make sure that when students came in the center, they could transition easily so they can feel at home. And as Krim, and as an educator, you know, if students cannot be retained, they cannot be taught. If we can't retain them, they can't be taught. If they don't feel it's a safe space, they can't be taught. So I had a tremendous amount of leaders from a student aspect and colleagues that I work with. Many of them are probably going to be watching this, but I did my stint for 5 years. And before I got there, lastly, my pastor, Stephen Moffitt, him and I was inboxing on Facebook. And this man said to me in the inbox, "You going to learn more from them than you're going to be able to teach them." Huh? What do you mean? After the 5 years I was done, I understood what he meant.
That's heavy right there. Because that makes me even think about my time in the classroom. Like we started around the same time. I started in 2010, you started 2011. And I think about the years I spent in the lessons, because you go into the classroom, especially as an adult, you got your degree, certification, or whatever. You think you the expert on something, and you soon find out that I always tell when I speak to teachers, I'm like, yo, the only thing we know about more than these kids is the content. Everything else, especially if we coming from an outside community, they're the experts. So we got to humble ourselves and listen. So I'm curious to know, like, what were some of those lessons that you learned from your students? What was that experience like? Because for them, these kids were there, bro, and young adults as well. They were there. They lived there, right? So, like, was there any type of resistance when you were trying to mentor kids and speak to kids, or was it kind of just a seamless flow for you?
Give me 1 second. Okay. Because it's kind of stalling and I'm hearing your questions.
Yep. And I'm looking in the comments too. I see somebody was like, to your point, y'all had one of the top three centers in America. That's crazy. Top three? Like, what was y'all doing there? But go ahead. When you ready, go ahead.
Uh yeah. So then when I'm transitioning into the high school aspect and I'm sharing and imparting to students and teachers, some of these people don't know that I came from a top performance center. I was a part of a dream team. Yeah, I was a part of a dream team. What we were doing was we had tremendous leadership, a director team. One of our directors was Mr. Simon, and then you had Miss Sanchez, you had Mr. Tucker, you had Miss Owens. These people were top echelon in their profession, and so they was training and developing us. But I think what we were doing was that Mr. Collier, Josh Collier, who was in academics at the time, he used to always say that You don't come to Job Corps, you get sent there. It's a calling, it's an assignment. And that's true. Because for most of us, it wasn't a job. It was an assignment. We were able to work together, conflict here and there, that's family, right? But the goal was the kids, brother. The goal was the kids. And when we kept that goal in the front of our minds and in our hearts, we were able to get things done. And man, I can't even, I'm emotional even talking about it. It was tremendous people there, brother. It was resistance, of course, because students had to understand that we in it for y'all. This not just a job for us. This is an assignment. We're imparting to the leaders in the present who will be the leaders of the future. So once they kind of felt us and began to trust and knew that we was in there for them, then they understood. There, above and beyond was the norm. And that's why when I go into different environments, whether they be community center school or professional organizations, I don't know what it means to give less than what's in you because these are the environments that I came from, whether it was me getting started at Menards, going to our church, we are both international ministries, and then going to Job Corps. I don't know what it means to give the minimum.
Man, so to your point, I'm looking in the chat right now. Shout out to the people we got watching. Selena, Gary Barrett Jr., Veronica, John Atkinson, my brother Antoine Edwards, and
Yes, sir.
Teresa. Teresa Norman said, Job Corps completely changed my life. I am glad that Marcus Cage was my math teacher as well as my mentor. That's heavy right there, man. Like you think about generational impact. So I think for me, and I think this is a point that you made in our prior conversations, and it made me think of like the aspect of the church, like the building, like what you all were able to do as a top 3 Job Corps center in the country. That's crazy. I ain't never know that. All these years I've known you, I didn't know that.
Yep.
It speaks to me because I would imagine that most of the people that work there either were from the immediate area or just the Joliet or Chicago area in general. I think it speaks to what you all were able, like the love that you have for the students in the community. And one of the points I was making earlier when I was talking was the fact that that commitment still exists. Like the work you do on a global or national scale is still there, right? And it may have been nourished there, right? So, like, what were some of the, um, I would say, what were some of the successes that you came across during your experience at Job Corps, like whether on an individual or just community level?
You know what? I can't see the chat because it was an echo, so I apologize for that, y'all. So I can concentrate and really answer these questions from my heart. So shout out to Mr. Edwards, because that's why I first met Mr. Edwards there. Mr. Atkinson was a counselor. Mr. Edwards was a counselor at the time. Uh, Miss Norman, our student, I remember her. These people, I would say, Mr. Edwards, especially, I met Mr. Edwards as a counselor. So he transitioned into a position that I ended up in, and then he ended up overseeing like 2 departments. And so when you talk about success, all these individuals, uh, nobody, I put it like this, Mr. Krim, nobody at Job Corps could just do their job. You know what I'm saying? You had to be able to be flexible. Sometimes, for example, my role was to talk to every student and make sure they understood the dynamics of the program. Make sure that they wanted to be there based on the norms, the rules, and expectations that we were sharing with on the phone. It's called a pre-arrival call. I talked with every student. I talked with every parent, in addition to Miss Moffitt, who did, these were called pre-arrival calls. And when you think about success, sometimes we think about success from a standpoint of like an award or plaque or some type of recognition. Well, when I see people advancing because you don't have any choice in this place but to be flexible, there are times where I'm on the dorm. There are times where I'm in the cafeteria. There are times when I'm in a rec. There are times where I'm in academics. It was a family oriented aspect where most of us, we know our positions, right? But if something took place where you got to get in where you fit in, then you got to get in where you fit in. Check this out. I was a manager, like supervisor, but also spent a lot of time in the classroom. But when the kids got bused home to Chicago on 95th, I was one of the people on the bus. And some of my other staff were some of the people on the bus. And that's what made it was, man, it was a top performing center for a long period of time, man. When you come into a center and an organization where you top 3 and 4 in the nation, you got centers coming to see your best practices. Oh man, it was amazing. I tried to answer the question the best that I could, but I got to give honor and kudos to the team and to the organization, specifically the people, as far as the director teams, the managers, the dorms, and the student leaders. It's nothing. It's nothing. We could have done nothing. When we say when we are top performance center at that time, it was because the staff and the students worked together. You feel what I'm saying? It wasn't just because we had these degrees or we had this experience. That was a component of it. But
Mm.
sometimes with Job Corps, when you think about at risk students, we think about behaviorally challenged students. We think about quote unquote bad students. We think about students that struggle academically. My brother, and to my students who are listening, and to students that are have to leave from the program because of the closure. We have phenomenal students. We have students that you would be like, where you come from? Because in the mindset, it's just for these type of students. No, it's not. You have those type of students in there from a behavior standpoint, challenged academically and don't really know their path. But I had a tremendous team of leaders. I could train them and they could operate in that, and I don't have to oversee them. They have full reign from a leadership capacity, to do what we taught them to do. But they had supervision, but they didn't have a lot of oversight because they had it in them already. It was just the environment that they needed and the people to know
Mm.
that they had it in them. It was the environment and people as adults seeing it in you and challenging you to grow and you be nurtured in that environment.
The environment, that's powerful right there. So, like, what do you, I'm off the top of your head, what percentage would you say of students were from Joliet versus Chicago versus any other area in Illinois?
If I'd say percentages back then, I would say as far as for the Joliet students, out of 100%, I would say maybe 3 to 5% of students were from Joliet because you will have students from Joliet there be residents, but you would also have students there from Joliet be non-res. A non-res person is a person that will come in 8:30, they would leave at 3:30, and sometimes those non-residents they would have jobs, so they couldn't stay on center. As far as from a Chicago standpoint, a bulk of those students at Joliet Job Corps from the time that I was there from 2011 to 2016, if I would put a percentage on it, I would say probably a strong 80 to 85%. And we also have students from all over the world too. I work with many international students. I ask them where they from, and they'll say a country. That's where you from? So that's amazing. But from a standpoint, it was the bulk of our students at that time were from the city of Chicago. And then my colleagues that was there, if they chime in too, they got a perspective on it. They may have a different perspective or a better perspective that I have as far as percentages, but they still have some valid feedback to give as well, if you see it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at Gary Barrett Jr. right now. He said Joliet was top from what he experienced because the staff actually cared about us as students and didn't look at our flaws. That's powerful, man. You might have to say this chat, man. Add this to
Yeah.
your one page or whatever. And that, bro, and again, for me, especially considering that this is in the news so much, the fact that you were a part of a team that had the top three in the country, bro. I think that's something that got to be said more. And it's, I think it now I'm able to see this connection more of, again, we talking about history now, it's personal history, but the connection
Hmm.
between what you did then and what you do now, it shines more of a
Yeah.
light. Like you in here teaching folks math. So when you step in as a guest teacher, you know what I'm saying, occasionally doing some work at Central or West, that ain't nothing compared to what you probably had to be flexible with and teach there.
Check it out, man. And this is to my students as far as their growth and development, and this is the students who and staff that's experiencing the closure. I had to leave Job Corps because it was time. When you begin to outgrow an environment and when you understand what God places in you, because the thought that God shared with me was that what he said to me, what I place in you cannot be limited to the four walls of a building. I didn't have the opportunity to really give all the gifts that I had in that setting. And so I had to transition. My transition was proactive. It was not reactive. I need for y'all to hear this. In life, your transitions should be more proactive than reactive. My heart goes out to the students and the staff that are experiencing the result of the closure. But the lesson that we can extract from this is we have to be proactive. We can't just sit back and wait on life to happen to us. We got to be proactive and happen to life. So my move was more, okay, now it's time to transition. And I give you this last tidbit. We saw so many students walk across the stage that and I'm sure some of my students that are watching this can attest to this. They would be selfish. You take a Mr. Atkinson, for example. He was a counselor. I forgot what dorm he was on. I don't know if it was JFK, FDR. Mr. Atkinson, shut that out if you can. Our students, our relationship was so strong with them is that if Mr. Atkinson said he was going to leave, all students like, no, man, you can't leave. But students would graduate and walk across the stage, and you experienced this before, Krim, and they would have the audacity to think that we was going to be there forever. So when I transitioned from Job Corps, I gave a last speech, and the students, and I had two of my students, my daughter Shatera, and I forgot who the other person was, but I remember their faces. Both of them was crying tears, Krim. And this is and I'm saying this not to exaggerate or boast myself. I'm saying this because this is the type of impact that the staff of these 120 Job Corps and these 99 Job Corps that's getting ready to close. This is the type of impact that staff has had and is having on the leaders of tomorrow. And I said to the students, why y'all crying? They're like, they was crying as though one of their relatives had passed away. And this is what I told them. The world is bigger than Job Corps. We will see each other outside of this building. And lo and behold, if I'm in Chicago, if I'm in Orland Park, I'm running into my students all day, every day. And I know Mr. Evers can attest to this. I know Mr. Colbert can attest to this. Mr. Atkinson, Miss Norman, Miss Moffitt, all these individuals, Mr. Tucker, I can name so many individuals, man, that had a tremendous impact on the students, and the students have a tremendous impact on them.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And I'm continuing to scroll and just seeing these testimonials, bro, about the work y'all did together. Shayna said, Job Corps changed my life, and it breaks my heart that the youth is not going to get that opportunity. I graduated in 2017, salutatorian. Um,
Wow.
saw another one. Courtney said, Job Corps was the best decision of my life. Um, has me in an eight-year healthcare career. So she's been in the healthcare industry for 8 years. It set her
Mm-hmm.
on an amazing path to become a BCBA. Mr. Cage, you are amazing. Spoke words into my life. You encouraged me to do better and go farther. Thank you. So many of the staff there just spoke into my life and gave me the encouragement to do better. Bro, you might cry again, bro. I don't know. I know how I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be dang near tears right now, man.
Yeah,
so,
man.
so this what I want to ask you too, then, because you we left under similar circumstances, years apart, like in the same community, but same reasoning why. Um, and so you have been gone like from that particular building. It's been about 9 years or so, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you left in 2016. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking as we transition, as the multitude of centers are closing down, what is the gap now in the community? Because to your point, most of the students who are actually being served weren't actually here. But I think it still speaks to the opportunity that existed, and also too the people who lived here, who worked there. But what are
Mhm.
we missing now that that's going to close down? And then what can we do to provide that missing link now?
I think one of the aspects that we're going to be missing when as our students in the current age that we in or time to 2025, they're going to be missing out on housing. Did I answer that question right for you?
Yeah, yeah, like, and I mean, in any way you want to take it, because
Okay.
the housing, but also too, one of the things I thought was really impressive, again, outside looking in, when I learned about Job Corps, I'm seeing that it provided for us what people critique about school. They like, oh man, what are trades at? Or what are hands-on stuff? Kids ain't getting
Hmm.
it and all this type of stuff. But if you look at what Job Corps is providing, I mean, to me, it looked like it was helping kids like who could excel in that, but then not also like be taken away from their core lessons. You know what I'm saying? Because now, if you got a trade in your school, that might just be the elective as opposed to the focus, and you
Yeah,
ain't graduating with the certificate most times.
I understand your question better now. Thank you for that, brother. I appreciate you. For those who don't know what Job Corps does, and I've seen some videos and I've seen people speak about Job Corps that had never been there, and they try to articulate the program on what it does. This is what Job Corps does, and this is what it did. It's for young people ages 16 to 24. You start in CPP, which is career preparation period. We focus on career development and employability, which is one aspect that we don't emphasize in high school. So that's when I'm teaching in the high school. When we doing potential, we going into these middle schools and high schools. I'm normally speaking from what I taught there and what I experienced in my life because it was integrated into the different lesson plans and the things that we imparted into the kids from the public speaking aspect, from the resume writing to interviewing, conflict resolution. All these aspects was taught in that one space, but it also was taught in other spaces as well. Then you transition in career development period. You can get your high school diploma or GED. You can get it online, or you can do it in the classroom. You transition also into your trade. So at the time, they had several trades: security, cement masonry, culinary, different hands-on trades that a tactile learner is a person that's hands-on, would excel in versus a person that's just audio or visual, sitting in the classroom still all day, listening, soaking in. Sometimes people don't learn that way. Then you have the trades that you transition into. Then the last part is the career transition period. Mr. Ernest, the resume that you built in career preparation period, career transition period, Miss Candace Brown, she's going to help you refine that to make sure that when you transition out of this center, that you transition into a job placement in association with your career. So those are the components that are not available if and when, or I would say if and hopefully but if these centers close, that portion is missing. And then in addition, you have the structured learning environment. You getting training all throughout the day in a traditional classroom setting, but also in a leadership capacity. You have structured evening. They call it social development, where you going on a dorm, you are responsible for a space. You got dorm staff, dorm supervisors, residential advisors, supervising and making sure that you know what to do because we're promoting independent living in aspect. You have Mr. Rail who's doing leadership training with the students to be able to lead not only in the classroom or throughout the training day, but in the evening as well. So these are some of the components that will be missing if this program was to shut down.
So that makes me think, and before I continue, now I feel like it's what I'm saying, it's an obligation now to keep shouting you out. So we're gonna pause again and read another testimonial from
Okay.
Chris. Mr. Cage gave me strength and confidence to get stronger in life. That's what Chris said. That's powerful right there. John
Mm-hmm.
said, John Atkinson, a lot of students stayed on center or stayed in the center during holidays because they had nowhere to go. So with
Yep.
them closing down, housing will be a major need. That speaks to even when I was watching the video about the center in Little Rock, Arkansas. And one of the educators was like, I got to help these kids get into a shelter now. Like I don't, when you think about the age of 16, so that's prime age where kids kind of even feel that autonomy to say, you know what, I'm running away or I'm leaving home. And for me, what it looked like on the outside is Job Corps was the area though where it's like, okay, you want to make that decision, you want to drop out, well, let's take you in here. And then at the same time, you're developing that independence. Let's give you a pathway to self sufficiency because that's the age when kids start to do more things independently and be out the house and think they grown and stuff like that. So, what I'm thinking about now is with these centers closing, my question to you is were you all providing anything at that center that we cannot do collaboratively as a community moving forward?
Ooh, ask me that question again. That's a tough question.
So, were you all doing something at this top three center in the country with all the structure, the infrastructure, the systems in place, the people that we as a community right now moving forward could not do if we needed to for our kids? And we do need to do it for our kids now.
We could do it in the community. It would be it would be it's possible for us to do it. The one aspect that we had that sometimes in this society that we miss was unity. We had unity like for real. We had unity. And in a job setting, in a career setting, you interact with your coworkers and it's just, sometimes you vibe with some people, sometimes you don't for whatever reason. But for the most part, from my experience, man, I vibe with everybody. I remember Nakia Brown, she might be watching this. She was the CSIO supervisor, that's Center Standards Incentive Officer. Her and I would go to blows, not literally, but verbally back and forth. Mr. Cage, this student did. Miss Brown, come on. You're doing too much. Mr. Cage, or it would be vice versa. But we were brother and sister. And the goal was always who? The students. The goal wasn't you a supervisor, I'm a supervisor. Tit for tat. We didn't even entertain that wasn't even in our culture. I think that our culture at Job Corps, Joliet Job Corps from the time that I was there, and that culture was established before I got there. I just happened to be blessed to come in and get connected to a dream team, right? But that culture was already present. So our culture of selflessness, our culture of community, our culture of Mr. Cage, he can go to the dorm and work with the dorm staff, and the dorm staff not looking at him sideways like, "Who is this?" Sometimes the dorm staff would see me and they would say, "You, Mr. Cage, I heard about you. I heard some good things." But it was never to the point where I couldn't go and work with this person or work with that person. We had awesome academic staff as well. Somehow, some way, we was all able to work together collectively. And not saying there wasn't no disagreements, not saying there wasn't no ups and downs, but it seemed as though everybody had a sincere passion to make sure that these students was getting the help that they need, not only academically, not only from a career standpoint, but personally in their lives to help them, be the best version of themselves. The community can do it, but my famous quote, and you heard me say this several times in our conversations, that our communities, and this is me speaking to my Chicagoland students, former staff, and students that I didn't know at this Job Corps in Joliet and various Job Corps, it's not a hopeless situation. But if you get this thought and you let it kind of matriculate in you and you live it, we'll be okay. Because it's about us, not about one or two people. Our communities are not where they need to be because too many people are trying to win MVPs instead of us winning championships. That's why we were one of the top performing centers because it wasn't about individual recognition. It wasn't about that. It was about us as a center and us as a community.
Mm, man, too many people trying to win MVPs, not enough trying to win championships. Make sure y'all
Man,
get that. That's and I think also too to your point of being like you joined a team. So you say you joined the dream team, you were able to add to it. So I'm getting like, what I'm saying, you was KD, joining the Warriors and adding to that. to that team right there. And also too, I think when you're able to join a great system, it brings out the best in you. And I think also too, when we have folks who are able to join a team like that, and we ain't got to be concerned about our needs being met, you being compensated, you know what I'm saying? You're taken care of. You get to focus on the main thing. And I think that as educators and mentors in the community, we got to be thinking now too, like what youth in our community possess those same skill sets and characteristics to be to our kids what you were to them and what your coworkers were, right? And I want to also say you're doing something very similar with potential for a younger demographic. So, like we're focusing on middle school, to me, you're trying to nip that in the bud to and make sure that they have the support they need moving forward. So I want to make sure people know too that they can donate to what you're doing with potential and support you. And especially for your former students out there, if they are in spaces where they're connected with youth programs and schools like that, they need to make sure they're connecting with you because with what we do, when we left our educational institutions, we didn't stop focusing on education. We just fine tuned it to what we knew was better suited outside of that system and curriculum.
And that's a
So,
good point. That's a good point that you made there because I want to share some things that you and I was sharing as far as my first initial response to hearing about the Job Corps closing. And this is what I shared with Krim in our text, y'all. No job is guaranteed to remain in the earth indefinitely. We can no longer depend on these systems, y'all. We can no longer depend on these systems. And it was something else that I shared to you. Oh, there are too many people, and this is your teacher saying this to y'all. There are too many people looking for employment and not enough people producing value services and or products or employing others. So when you mention potential, I wouldn't even mind some of my former students coming and working with us in potential because that's what we really supposed to be doing. If we can employ you all and train you, then the baton is already being passed. The Job Corps, it disappears. Okay, what's the next move? We look within ourselves, we come together in the community and we say, what can we do to fill that void or fill that deficit? Because my concern is this, y'all. My concern is that if Job Corps, so this gonna be a little bit spicy. If I'm in a relationship, because we did healthy relationships class there too, so students gonna be able to relate to this. If I'm in a relationship and the person that I've been with for 3 or 4 months, they cheat on me, and I find out, and they say, you know what, Case, I don't want to be with you anymore. Okay, understood. It hurts. I'm gonna take it on the chin like a champ. I'm gonna be emotional because I'm a human, but eventually I'll get through it. 3 months afterwards, she comes back. Let's just say her name's Sally, Sally Mae. Let's say she come back and say, you know what, Mr. Cage or Marcus, I rethink my dream, and I want to get back with us. Do I take her back or no, y'all? Yes or no? I want you to respond in the comment section. This is what I would say to that. And I use that analogy because what if our federal government says to these students, yeah, we're gonna bring it back. What do we do? Do we go back? That's a challenging question. Do we go back? Because you've already showed us what it is. This just food for thought. You showed us what it is. Do we go back or do we move forward and become self-sufficient? Self-sufficient in the context of bringing our individualism to the table and building community.
yeah, we got one immediate response. Lysandra said no. Miss Lysandra Rodriguez immediately said no. And I think we're understanding now just how fragile these institutions are. Because to a point I was making earlier was I don't think a lot of our kids or even adults, because I didn't know where it came from. I had never done research on it prior to this happening. We don't like with all of this stuff that might potentially end. Now my mind is like, well, where did it come from? And if we aren't aware of why it was a need then, why it was created then we can't properly create the solution in this generation if it's still needed. I think sometimes we take these things for granted. That's not to say that, with this presidency that could have been prevented, but it's to say that if we have those systems in place, then we can already mimic or mirror what that need is like. Because for me, as somebody who taught in the public school system, I know my strength. I got a Black History course for kids online.
Yes, sir.
If for some reason they shut down the public schools or whatever, right? My kids ain't gonna miss out on that because they ain't want to learn it anyway for the most part, right? If the school shut down, my wife is, and again, now these are the careers we chose to go into, right? But also too, we provide this as a service for people. So like the math is taken care of, the reading aspect is taken care of. I'm gonna link up with Mr. Cage and the mentoring he provides, that's taken care of. Then I got to think about, shoot, do I know somebody who can help my kids learn finance or learn some science stuff? We all
Mm-hmm.
the systems that we have in place now that are created by the government that we benefit from, we got to start acting like they're gonna get eradicated, or the majority. Because to your point, I think you said not all of them are being dissolved, right? Just like that sound like 80-90%.
Yeah.
And even the ones that remain probably ain't gonna get the funding they need. We forget public school ain't always been here, bro. That has not always been a thing in America. Talk to if your grandparents are still around, ask them how far they went to school. Some of your grandparents stopped in middle school because that was all that was required. Even
Mm-hmm.
before then, like it was an option. They started to make that like they started to penalize parents. That was later. You know what I'm saying? We got to think
Mm-hmm.
about that. We got Medicaid might be gone soon. Do we know doctors in our community? Like food stamps might be gone soon. Do we know the nearest food pantry? Do we know how to grow food? Do we know somebody that can help us out? The
Mr.
way I feel now, bro, by the end of this year, all the services probably gonna be gone. So we got to know how to adapt.
Mr. Ernest Krim, your favorite Black history teacher. History is a forecast for the future. We survived and thrived through COVID, y'all. You know, because when COVID took place, you and I was in high school teaching. A lot of us, all of us, had to make the transition because we had to play with the hand that we were dealt. So if history is a forecast of the future, and we survived and thrived, because for me personally, I thrived during COVID in all areas of life. So it wasn't one of them, oh my God, it's COVID. No, it was one of the best periods of my life because it made me depend on God. And when you depend on the source, the resource doesn't become the source. Because when the resource become the source and it's taken away, you like, oh, now it's emotional duress. I want to touch on a couple things because I know we're gonna be short on time. I want to read some other stuff, that as I was preparing to connect with you on Substack. My apologies again for that, my brother. I wrote a couple of things. And some of the things that I wrote was that the job growth paused abruptly due to an internal review by the Department of Labor, DOL. They examined allegedly, because we don't necessarily know, we just can go off what was said to us. It was a 2023 budget internal assessment. But this closure affects 25,000 students nationwide. Some of them will be relocated from my research. My research also spoke to me by saying that the budget deficit of $100 million, average graduate rate was 38%. And so what I wrote was that these are facts, and facts are subjective. I'm sorry, facts are objective. Feelings and emotion are subjective. And so the reason why I gave that is because these are facts. Facts can be skewed. Who knows? Because when you look at data, when you look at research, if an individual, and I'm not saying that people did this, but I'm just giving a lesson. I can look at numbers and prove whatever I want to prove. So that's something that's important. Unless I have a holistic view, then my view could be skewed and then it can impact people as it impacting people now. But I want to give a tip to my students that's watching and students that have been impacted by these closures is that when you operating from a business standpoint, Your emotions and feelings is not in the equation. Every video that I've watched thus far of the people that have been victimized by this closure, they were very emotional. But when you operating in business, your emotions is involved in it because it's hard work, right? What we do is hard work. But then we have to have fiscal responsibility when we managing these situations. If we do something individually and we come together as a community, it's going to be hard work, but we got to make sure to take care of our business, y'all. And my heart go out to people that are going to be displaced by this. But the teaching moment from me to us across the United States of America is that there's a lesson in the loss. But if we over emotionalize the loss, the lesson is lost. When you get something taken from you abruptly, and this is your all in all, the emotional impact is going to be there. But now, once I filter through that, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? Then, what's the plan of action? Who's involved in it? What resources do we need? Let's execute. We're stronger together than we are as individuals.
Mm. That's powerful. To me, what I get from that is Job Corps wasn't great because it was Job Corps. It was great because of y'all. And the same greatness that was brought to that institution exists wherever we are separately now. We still have the potential. And from what I see, I told you, man, whenever I see you do one of those call to actions on your Facebook page and I see hundreds of comments, to me that lets me know the community is still strong there. And I think you were telling me that there's a page even the Detroit chapter has that is very strong too. In my mind, what that looks like is I'm not sure if there's like reunion meetups or conferences, because I think that network is so vast. If you have people who are able to get through there in certain careers, like I think it's important for them to understand too that although Job Corps is preparing you for a job, through that process, you gain intangibles that will allow you to create your own source of employment. That's what I got when I was a teacher. I can
Mm-hmm.
I can adjust and adapt and do a variety of things because I was a teacher for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like moving forward, I think it would be important for people to who went through the institution, who taught there, to reestablish those connections and then say, well, what can we now double down and do for our kids right here? What's your one like call to action moving forward? Like what's the one thing we can do if we're concerned about this right now?
Man, this is what I would say for our students specifically. One call to action is that everybody get in. This your teacher talking. Everybody get in the reunion group. All the staff that was in Job Corps during the time that we were there. I would say, because I was there 2011, 2016, and there was some staff there before. If you are OG staff, you know who you are. Get let's get in the reunion group, and then all the students that we connected with get in a reunion group. We can build like something that you was sharing about the green book or the brown book. We can build a spreadsheet of, and collect the information, the data, and the numbers and the contacts, and we can remain in contact with each other. And I was thinking as you was talking, we can do, because we want to do a reunion anyway, but we can also do the reunion where we come in, barbecue, and have a good time. But we can do a big old conference, a 3-day conference where we all come back together and help each other in the way that we did when we was at the center. So if I was doing career development or career preparation, I would do that. If Miss Sorrells was doing leadership, she would do that. Whatever Mr. Atkinson was, whatever he was doing, whatever Mr. Everett was doing, we can do that. But as far as the students that are experiencing this in the Joliet Job Corps, we need to find out, do you all know these individuals? Do you all know these individuals? Because sometimes when a person go to Job Corps, they refer their cousin or their brother and sister will go. I run into many students like, man, my cousin went here, he told me about you. Or my sister went here, man, she told me about you. So we need to identify, I think we need to identify those students that y'all connected to specifically, who they are, so we can put something together to try to help them. But we got to identify for them what they need help with, then be able to help them. But also too, lastly, Krim, and I'll open the floor up to you as far as any ideas, because I was hearing what you were saying on Substack, is what resources What resources do you all know that's in Chicago that can help these students that are being displaced by the closure?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the next plan of action. I think that the benefit that I saw from the outside looking in is just being able to connect with a trade to get certified, of course, and then but also have that potential job waiting for you. I think, especially where we are, Joliet Junior College probably does a great job of that. But I think we also have to look at like what are the resources that we
Yeah.
have in our immediate community. And if we can say that, hey, we're missing fill in the blank, like we need some more of this, then we need to say, well, do I know somebody who does that? Though, like for me, when I was in a classroom, I was I was of 1% of black male educators. So
Mm-hmm.
if somebody knew of a young black boy that wanted to be a teacher, they could link me with him for mentorship. You see what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like that goes a long way into discovering what you want to do and finding employment and things like that. So we have to be intentional. Mentorship is not just something you do if you signing up for Big Brother, Big Sister, or linking up with your local school. This is an obligation for all of us. If you know somebody in your immediate family, immediate community, if there's a young brother, like we all got to pull each other to the side. Like, what do you want to do? You don't know? Well, just hey, come with me. Like you can at least see an example of something, especially if we are in these communities where we're not seeing a lot of opportunity. So I think that's something that we have already kind of been doing, but with Job Corps mostly ending, it just kind of gives us a more precise thing to aim for, in my opinion.
Yeah, I want my students as who's still on that you can see in the chat, correct?
I see John is commenting. Aisha, Letitia says she's down. Bree Williams chimed in and said you did a great job working with them. Yeah, I see a lot of folks commenting right now.
All right. Well, anybody that's in the chat, whoever, let's spread the wealth. I'm asking you, I'm being nice. I'm asking you to type this out so we can notate this and we can put a plan of action together. If you are aware of any employability programs in the city of Chicago or in Joliet, because Ms. Coleman could probably chime in because she was there. I think she was there the most recent as far as where the students are coming from. So she can add to that if she would like. But just me on the outside looking in, if you are aware of any of these opportunities in Joliet and more important, Chicago, because that's where the bulk of the students are going to come from. Employability programs, so somebody can type and put employability programs in the comments section. Career development programs. This is in both Joliet and Chicago. Housing opportunities, job opportunities. Also, too, I would think mentoring services, mental health services and counseling. So that's about 4 or 5. I'll repeat the top four though. Employability programs in the city of Joliet and the city of Chicago, career development programs, housing opportunities, whatever that looks like. Because I know here we got the housing authority in Joliet, but I'm sure it's different in Chicago. Job opportunities in both cities. So I want to put the responsibility on us, but also on our students because y'all are the leaders. And many of y'all came from this city. And so how do you change the dynamic and the culture of a city through the people? Sometimes what we do is we get real infatuated on legislation and laws and policies, and that is a expression of reform. But the deepest expression of reform is reform inside out, internally. I'm no longer thinking about I'm thinking about us. This impacts me. It impacts me because this is my city. This is the city that I reside in. So I'm gonna take accountability and not think about myself, but think about others. Because that's where I was at. I was like, you know what? I said, hold on, I'm connected to those people. Wake up, Cage. Get with Krim. Krim had already started the ball rolling. Jump in the car, wherever he taking the conversation. You compliment that. Shout out to you, for starting up the car, brother. I appreciate you. But I'm saying all that because we all have some sense of selfishness in us, but we gotta if we really gonna do this and not become solely reliant on the government, which we shouldn't, and I'm saying this to you boldly, we can do it if we come together. We were able to do it in COVID in various spaces. Let's do it now. Let's be proactive. Let's get this thing moving. I know it's going to take effort. I know it's going to take time. I know it's going to take endurance, but it's for us. Many of my students got kids now. You know what I'm saying, Krim? Many of my students, and excuse me, many of my and our former students in Joliet, they got kids now. So y'all got kids. We got to start thinking, man, the next generation's already here. I got to prepare this generation to take care of that generation so they can prepare that generation to take care of the next. Let's do it, man. Let's see what we
Yeah.
can do.
John Atkinson already added a couple resources. Growcommunity.org. That's GRO. Growcommunity.org therapy. Backslash therapy, I should say. And
Hmm.
then the UR Chicago Alliance. I'm gonna have to dip though. I'm at the head. I feel like I'm losing my voice. So I've been talking for like 2 hours straight. I'm gonna let you take it home in a minute. I gotta go ahead and get out of here. Tend to the babies downstairs real quick, man. But it's been a pleasure. Um, and look, let me know what I can do to directly like collaborate with y'all. But I feel like already the work we're gonna be doing, especially with the Brown book, is going to bring a lot of this stuff together too, man. And shout out to the folks in the chat too.
Well, we
Um,
can we
keeping
can
it
close
active.
it out. We can close out the conversation and then, Krim, are you already in the reunion group, right? I sent you an
I'm not.
invite.
I'm not. Send that to me.
Yeah. Yep, I
I don't
sent
check
you an
my
invite.
notifications enough. Okay, let me.
So OG Atkinson, just make sure that you're in the group for us, the reunion group. I'll send you an invite shortly after. And we'll pick up this conversation very, very soon, y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Krim, for leading the charge, man. We appreciate you. We're gonna see what we can do as a unit.
Yes, sir. Peace, y'all.
Yes. All right, y'all have a good one. Signing out. Peace.